What's going on, guys? This is Yasin. So yesterday, KONAMI of Europe, I believe, posted an article on their blog concerning the Genesys side event that happened at YCS Bologna, and they're going to be talking about like everything that they plan on fixing, because obviously it's still like in early development, so they are aware of the fact that it's not like a perfect format. It's, you know, like there's a lot of things that don't make any sense, and also like the way like the events are going for Genesys may not necessarily be the best because they don't have enough visibility. But again, they're going to be explaining quite a few things in here, so we're going to be going over everything. But again, as always, before we go any further, you know the drill, smash the like and subscribe button. Thank you, I appreciate you. Anyways, YCS Bologna was our first chance, obviously for Europeans, to see, well, how they tackle the Genesys format. And obviously European events, they have like over 2,000 players, so it's always a great sample size. It's not like, you know, some South American events that only have like 400 or 500 players. So the differences in qualification, in case you didn't know, in case you've never played a European YCS, they play their events completely differently from the rest of the world because their Friday also has Yu-Gi-Oh! In it. Like, they play side events on Friday, whereas everywhere else, the Friday, you go there to check in. You have to check in, mandatory. Obviously, Oceania is not like that because they also follow, like, European jurisdictions, so you also use Neuron to submit your deck list and everything, so Friday there's pretty much almost nothing going on. There's still some side events, actually, just like Europe, obviously, but in North America and stuff like that, there's none of that. So Friday, you really just check in, but in Europe, you could actually play, like, the day one of the Genesys, like, qualification. So Saturday, people are playing the day one at the main event. It's interesting if someone is playing, like, on the Friday for the Genesys qualifier, does well at the Genesys qualifier, so he is invited to the top 64 or whatever for day 2 or day 3 rather, which is Sunday. But then he also does well on day 1, and then he's qualified for day 2, and then he can't play the Genesys, you know, playoffs. I mean, they're explaining it right here. The Bologna qualifiers were run a little different than they were at the NA and LATAM YCS events, and Bologna qualifiers were held on Friday before the event began, so strong duelists that normally would be competing in the main event all day Saturday had a chance to qualify and have a tournament to fall back on Sunday if they failed to make it through day 1. So obviously, if you play day 1 and nothing, you know, like you don't really do well, at least like the performance that you had like on Friday allows you to, you know, play some more Genesys on Sunday. As such, the format for the invitational qualifiers was shifted as well from single elimination to essentially double elimination Swiss. So yeah, if you die twice, you're out, but if you die once, it's fine. So instead of like just playing 3 rounds and you need to win 3 to be in, it's like you play 4 rounds and you only need to win 3 out of 4 to be fine. So obviously that's a better format. It's kind of annoying when you have to win like 100% of your matches, because imagine if you go win, win, lose. It defeats the purpose. Whereas if there's 4 rounds, even if you lose round 1, there's incentive to keep playing. This could have resulted in an invitational with over 64 players, but it was done to take into account the possibility of many qualifiers not showing up on Sunday due to still being in the main event. Yes, of course. So they wanted more players because they were expecting people to like not show up, obviously, because again, they have 3 days of Yu-Gi-Oh! Indeed, there were duelists who qualified on Friday and then performed extremely well in the main event, leading them to skip the invitational. So I'm assuming some of them even probably got to like top 8 or something, where they had to play extra rounds. So yeah, anyways, differences in deck selection. Why did we bring that up? Because being able to lose 1 and still qualify does change the equation a bit on what sort of decks you can qualify with. And the reason why that is the case is because now you can play a deck that is a little more risky, a little more aggressive, and it's fine because you don't have to play a deck that is like super safe, super, I guess, like consistent, low to the ground, that will always like do well-ish. Like now you can actually take risks because you can afford a loss. There's incentive to play different kinds of decks, which is good. This is what the Genesys format should allow you to do. Play pretty much anything you want. So yeah, 4 decks that had never qualified before, Infernoble Knights, Unchained Archfiend, Heraldic Beast, and Lunalight, made the field in Bologna, and that is because of their new system, where you can lose once and still be in for the qualification on Sunday. Again, in North American events, it wasn't the case. Lunalight is a deck that's specifically been considered strong and difficult to fight against once it gets going, and the reason for that is because of Lagro Dancer, but it struggled mightily in straight single elimination events. You can say that because, you know, the Odeon deck, that is going to be a really rough matchup for Lunite if Lunite has to go second. Heavy Poly and Lunite Fusion are useless, and, you know, your power cards, they all get negated by Apophis the Swamp Deity, and Lunite does not play hand traps, so all you have is gas. Under the modified qualifier rules, 4 Lunite decks made it in, again, because even if you do play one of your worst matchups, it's not the end of the world because you can keep, you know, beating the other decks and you're good. and 3 of them were one and dones in the Invitational, but the 4th one went all the way and won the tournament. That's crazy. And I've only been saying this since day 1, by the way. I've been saying Lunalight is, objectively speaking, the best deck in the Genesys format. People were like, oh, I don't know about that. It struggles to make more than one Liger Dancer. I'm not seeing where people are saying this, because it makes no sense. Like, the deck has, like, 1-card combos that make double Liger Dancer. The deck is cracked, and people are barely playing hand traps. And you still have some solutions for Kaijus. Like, you can play Necrofusion and then make the Liger Dancer on your opponent's end phase or something. Anyway, something to think about as we move forward is that the current Invitational format is going to be retired in the new year and replaced with the same format used in YCS's as Genesys moves out of early access and gets plugged into our standard tournament systems. They said that at the very start, where they've explained that the Genesys format, on release, it would just be a side event, and then in 2026 we would start getting actual YCS Genesys. Kind of crazy. Imagine getting a YCS side event, like a YCS Edison format, but like, again, like, obviously right now, there's technically, you can kind of say there is, but again, it's like, it's not the main thing. Like, nobody really talks about it. Like, even, like, the champion of, like, the baby YCS of, like, Time Wizard, it barely gets any, like, visibility or, like, coverage. But now there's going to be, like, you know, everything about, like, the YCS is going to be centered around Genesys. I wonder if there's going to be, like, real TCG side events in YCS Genesys. Like, you know, like, because right now, like, the main event is TCG, and the side event is Genesys. I wonder if they're going to, like, flip it up. That would actually be really interesting. That way, like, a lot of people will still go to these YCSs. This will affect the tournament viability, or lack thereof, of certain decks, and we'll be taking it into account moving forward. So, yeah, obviously, some decks will be getting better and worse. It's whatever. Right now, there's no way to tell. Anyways, any extreme outliers? The deck that lost the most ground was Archmage. Yeah, obviously. Which had grown its share from Anaheim to Pittsburgh, then dropped off heavily in Bologna. Instead, the 2 decks reached outlier status with more than double the showing of Lunite in the Invitational. So Dragontail and Radiant Typhoon Runic. Those decks, I mean, I've been saying also, like, these decks are, like, way too good to be in this format. Like, they're, oh my god, and the engines are, like, not hit enough, and the cards are, like, unfair, because, like, the rules of Genesys don't really affect those 2 decks too much. Like, Dragontail doesn't need the extra monster zone, it doesn't need any links, it doesn't need any pendulums, and Radiant Typhoon Runic, all you lose is Hugin. That's pretty much it. Anyways, Dragontail operates as a high-power Shaddoll style deck, obviously because it's a fusion deck with spellcasters and dragons, and in some cases even include Shaddolls. Yeah, you can play Shaddoll Fusion, you can play, you know, Squamata with Beast, so you can draw a card when you fuse with them. You fusion summon, and the monsters you fuse together activate their effects in the grave to give you more cards, blah blah. Of course, it's much faster than Shaddoll decks used to be, with Dragontail 5 mana letting you start fusing from the first main phase of the game, even if it's not your turn. Obviously, like, the most unfair thing that you can do is turn 0 5 mana. The Dragontail spell and trap cards you get for fusing your monsters are very strong, and in particular, Dragontail Flame is so strong that it escaped containment and became a generic card used in many decks, especially side decks. Of course, because you're putting points on cards like Solemn Judgment and Dragon's Mind, like right now, and other kinds of cards that can negate spells, traps, whatever. But then Dragontail Flame is free, so obviously people are gonna start playing Dragontail Flame to negate spell cards. Now you can negate Dark Ruler no more, and, you know, Harpy's Feather Duster, Lightning Storm, whatever. So obviously people are gonna be playing this card, especially when you can, like, search it if you're playing, like, a baby Dragontail engine in your deck. Lunalight can play a Dragontail engine, so it has access to, like, a searchable flame. And then for Radiant Typhoon, unlike the standard Radiant Typhoon decks, Radiant Typhoon Runic has an excess of removal, draw, and search power. It can also play Mirage of Nightmare really well, and then you can draw into Runic cards, and then draw even more cards! You can draw freaking 7 cards in a turn! And almost all those extra cards are quick plays that also attack the opponent's main deck. You deck your opponent out. It's broken. It's a deck that often never has to attack at all, and just waits for the opponent to deck out, while defending with powerful Xyz monsters and randomly sniping key cards from the top of the deck. That's so infuriating to play against. If you're playing a combo deck and you lose a lot of 1-ofs, especially in a format like Genesys where it's much slower, you 1,000,000,000% lose if you're under floodgates and your opponent draws way too much. So obviously they're going to fix that. We think it's fine to have a deck in the format that's analogous to the old Needleworm deck-out decks. Yeah, they're okay with deck-out decks. But this particular combination where you get to play 2 entire decks that are individually good enough to win on their own, Radiant Typhoon is good enough, and then pure Runic, or like Runic Stun, good enough. Imagine mixing both together. At the same time, it has become so widespread that neither main engine will be completely free after the next update. They're going to be putting some point restriction on both Runic cards and Radiant Typhoon cards. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's how it's gonna play out. I believe the Radiant Typhoon that draws to discard one, that one for sure it's going to like 10-15 points for sure. And then obviously Runic Tip, that one is also going to like a couple of points. Maybe Freezing Curses, I'm not sure at this point. For a Fountain, maybe like 30 points. Just so that playing like 2 Fountain, 3 Fountain, that's gonna be completely impossible. Anyways, any extreme card usage outliers. This is where, okay, this is like one of the biggest problems actually in the Genesys format, because the goal of Yu-Gi-Oh! Genesys is to like create a format that is completely different from TCG, where we don't have the same issues, where you have to play hand traps and you have to play the exact same cards as, you know, everyone else to have a chance. Because if you do, then you're really just recreating the same format and then just changing the problem with another one. So they're going to be trying to like address this completely. In Pittsburgh, there was only one card that was used in 30% of or more of all decks submitted for the qualifiers, and that card was Dueling Logbird. I believe it was worth like 5 points or something. In fact, 54% of all possible copies of it were registered in the qualifiers, though we should note that this number treats the player who enters multiple qualifiers with the same deck as a unique player each time. So yeah, you can play like multiple times and they're going to be considering it like a different player over and over. Looking at how many copies were in the Invitational itself, where the player was actually were actually unique, 63% of all the possible copies were played. That's a lot. That's way too much. It's like tier 0 numbers when you're like 60+% of, like, you have to play the card, otherwise like you have a big disadvantage. This may sound low if you're used to looking Master Duel or Advanced format. Obviously, yeah, it's low because Artifact Lancia, like during the Malice format, was played in like 94% of decks. It was ridiculous. You know, cards like that, and Ash was played in like, I don't know, it might have been played in like 99% of decks, and like Molchemi, Furos, and stuff like that. So obviously 63% may sound low, but for Genesys this is way too high. Because, you know, obviously there's a cost to like including it, and they're still playing Dueling Logbird because even though there's a cost, like, the card still performs better than the other cards that have the same cost. Which means that it's too good for its bracket. Speaking just as one person on the Genesys team, I'd consider anything over 33%. Those are some really conservative numbers, and I like that, for a generic card to be an outlier, and take a look into whether it's that way because it's specifically countering a deck trend, or because it's outperforming its salary. So obviously if the card is worth like 5 points, but it's like by far the best card to stop certain decks, then, you know, that might be because like either like the decks, like they just conveniently happen to have the same weakness and maybe we should change them a little bit, or because the card is way too cheap like to be that good, and it should go up. Either way, it should like go up in points. For Droll, the answer is probably both, exactly, just like I said, which makes the Bologna Invitational numbers shocking. Only 35% of the maximum number were registered. Now, which advanced format forbidden cards were popular? And I've also been saying this, even though you can play banned cards in Genesys, because everything is, you know, like there's a point cap on everything, it feels like an illusion, it feels like a trap for most of them, because a lot of banned cards, even though they look broken, they actually suck, because they're only good when you can play other kinds of like degenerate like cards to go alongside with them. And obviously Konami is well aware of that, they're not stupid, so they adjusted like the point system to like make it so that a lot of like the unfair combos are not doable. So for example, Hard Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity, and then, you know, Crimson Dragon, like those kinds of combos, it's always like one card has 1 point and then the other one has 100 points. And also like it means that your engine itself won't really have a lot of points and you can't really play hand traps. But anyways, there were only 4 advanced format forbidden cards used in the Bologna Invitational, and 2 players decided to use Pot of Greed, which is interesting. It's 30 points, and, you know, it's a 1 of or a 2 of for 60 or 3 of for 90. And Mirage of Nightmare, which I believe is 20 points. And that one, obviously, it's pretty nice, hit Radiant Typhoon Runic. 1 player opted to play a pair of Heavy Storm, and 1 player ran a copy of number 86 Heroic Champion Rangominiad. This card, it's like your whole deck is built around it if you're playing it. So I'm assuming that the player who was on number 86 was the same who played Infernoble something. Yeah, there we go, Infernoble Knight. I think that's like one of the only decks that can... Oh, Heraldic Beast maybe? I'm not sure. Definitely not Lunite or Unchained Archfiend. Very interesting deck, by the way. Playing Unchained cards when you can't play Link monsters. So literally some of the best cards in your deck, they're unplayable. Sharvara, Shiyama, like those cards are decent. You can still make Caesar, I believe. When is the next update? There are 2 sets that we have to look forward to. there's Phantom Revenge coming out, I believe, in a week. And then in like 2 months or something, we're going to be getting Burst Protocol. And Burst Protocol is going to be introducing what I think is a tier 0 deck for Genesys. It is Elven Notes. That deck doesn't need to link summon at all. And if we don't preemptively hit the engine, it is going to be demolishing absolutely everything in the format. It is way too good. So I think they might actually start, prepping for that in advance. We were planning to line it up with the release of Phantom Revenge, as there are some cards in that set that proactively attack the main and extra deck. So yeah, obviously Killer Tune, I think that's like the best deck in that set. But they were talking about Heka Hands here, I believe. Cards that attack the main and extra deck. Maybe that's Heka Hands, I'm not sure. We're going to take the NA release delay of Phantom Revenge as an opportunity to take some extra time for this update. And also prepare a what to expect article for it. Yo, huge shoutouts to KONAMI, by the way, for like these articles where they talk about like their thought process and where they communicate with the player base on, what they want to do and why they are doing what they are doing. This is like super. And by the way, also this article was wrote in a really unique way. Like at one point, like, hold on a second. Yeah, he's even like the guy who's speaking, he's also saying like which makes like the article feel like more personal, feel, more like you feel like it's someone talking to you. It's really nice. It's not like some garbage that was like written like, in 2 seconds, like they don't, put in any thought or effort into it. Like clearly, whoever wrote this really cares about, not only the Genesys format, but also like the players who want to play the format and who really want to see what's in store for it. We're shooting for the 15th for the next update, so that's when Phantom Revenge is going to come out, but we'll let you know in the what to expect article if that changes. That's interesting because there's a world in which you can play some Genesys formats where Killer Tune and Heka Hands, I was gonna say Eniacraft, that deck is banned in Genesys because obviously they're all pendulums, you can't play them. But yeah, Killer Tune and Heka Hands, you could play them for free, actually, in Genesys for a couple of days or weeks, maybe, but they're not sure yet. They're still taking some time to think about it, and we'll know on like the 15th when the set comes out for the North American territory in their article, what to expect. So I will be back for in like 6 days then for when like they will be posting this, but you guys let me know how you feel about the future of the Genesys format, if you think KONAMI is on the right track at fixing it. Personally, I think they're doing a really good job at it. Like they understand like the problems, they understand also like the structure of the tournament, and also it would be nice if Neuron has to become like the mainstream for like every region out there. Right now, like Europe and Oceania are like the only territories that utilize Neuron, but it would be really cool if like North America and like Latin America would be able to like utilize it as well. That way, like Friday, you don't have to check in. You can just like play some more Yu-Gi-Oh! You can play some Genesys. And when YCS Genesys will come out, maybe Friday could be like a baby YCS for like the TCG, the advanced format. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know how you feel about all of this in the comment section below. I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.